Bad Brad, and but he talks about the coming down from the stage high is something that a lot of people can't cope with, especially as their body and age catches up with them. It's very hard to come down from the stage high.
That's an excellent point. I was talking to somebody else who says he doesn't know what to do when he's not on tour. I mean, he literally, and this is a pretty big time guitar player. I wish I could remember who that was. I mean, this is somebody who's famous and made money and toured, and he does not know what to do. But yeah, I can imagine getting off stage after, my God, something like that. And this isn't exactly analogous to what you're talking about, Nikos, but in the book, in Tone Chaser, I was doing a story for Guitar World, and I flew out to I forget, Chicago. I think I was to see Van Halen. This is 5150 era. Sammy was in the band. I think this is the first tour with Sammy, and they had just sold out whatever arena it was. I mean, there was, I don't know, 20,000, 25,000 people there, and afterwards, I was staying at the same hotel as Edward, and so we went back to his hotel room, and I just wanted to say, my God, what an amazing show that was, and this and that. Look, maybe he had been doing it for such a long time that he didn't feel that anymore. But and I'll be honest, I think I wrote about we took some drugs, and he drank, and he picked up a guitar and played. So for Edward, I don't know if there was a whole lot of difference between being on stage and just coming off stage and doing that, But there's a knock on the door. By now it's like 4 a.m. or something. And I thought, well, for somebody to be knocking on Edward's door at 4 a.m, I thought it could only be one of the band. I mean, who else is going to knock on him? The crew isn't going to knock on his door for, maybe some fan found out where he was staying, but even then they're not going to knock on his door. Anyway, Edward opens it, and it's Alex. And Alex comes in, and Alex has been there right along with Edward from day one, right? Edward has never played with another drummer. Alex has never played with another guitar player. They were there doing backyard parties in Pasadena. Obviously, they were brothers. They were kids. They were, playing in, elementary school bands. Alex has all the fame and money that Edward has. And Alex came in after playing this gig that, was mind-blowing. It was just amazing what a spectacle it was. And he comes in, and he was upset. He was like, and I write about this, he was like on the verge of tears. Edward, they always write about you, and they always want to know about you. And I know it's not exactly what you're talking about, but Terry's just come off stage from this concert, and it means nothing. And again, they've done a lot of high-profile tours, but I think there's a lot of guys, they get to that point, and yeah, you think that energy would feed them. I think they get off stage, and it's like, I'm lost. What do I do? Do I get high? Do I drink? And I think all that's tied together. Yeah, it's an amazing phenomena. And again, tied into this a little bit is, I can remember hanging out with Edward for when he went out in that first and second tour. The first tour, they're opening for Montrose and Journey, and then Black Sabbath. By the second tour, they're headlining. So their ascent was incredibly fast. But it was those first two tours. I know that he was happiest, and I can tell you, although I was never there when he actually came off stage, but I know he would come off stage and just feel elated and, feel all of that energy in a positive way. That feeling like, hey, we just kind of blew Montrose and Journey off the stage, and that kind of thing. But I think as those tours went on, I think that feeling dissipates, and it's like, well, what do I do now? And again, with that, it was always writing and playing guitar. But I think with other musicians, it was like, well, what do I do until the next tour? Or I'm writing now, but we got to get back into the studio. So strange, strange thing for sure.
You almost have to have music as a secondary thing in your life so that that wouldn't happen. But then again, you're never going to get to that point unless music is your obsession, right? Because you just have to put so much energy into this instrument to get to the point where you're going to do these big concerts.
Exactly. And I did have this conversation with my good friend, Jimmy Waldo, who's still my very good friend. Jimmy was the keyboard player and co-founder of a band called New England, which had a hit and were managed by Kiss's management and did some opening tours with Kiss and AC/DC, Ted Nugent, and then he was also the co-founder and keyboardist for Alcatraz, which is a band that had Yngwie Malmsteen in it and then Steve Vai. And he told me in New England that with him there was never a thought of any second kind of a job career, a fallback. He used to drive like 150 miles each way a couple times a week to rehearse with the band. And he said, had we not done that, we never would have had the deal in New England. And I had that conversation with somebody else. Again, a high-profile guy. And I said, well, was there ever a sense of if music didn't happen, would you have done something else? He goes, no, never. Edward never had a second job. He and Alex used to paint the numbers on curbs, the addresses, just to earn money to be able to buy guitar strings and gas for the van to drive to a gig. But it's not like, hey, you know what? I'm going to teach guitar or, excuse me. And I asked him, I said, Ed, if all this hadn't happened, meaning the tours and the fame, what would you still been doing? He'd go, man, I'd still be playing the whiskey. And I think that's what all these guys would tell you. Hey, I wouldn't be playing Madison Square Garden, but I'd be playing clubs, and I believe that because I do believe that to make it as a musician on that level, there cannot be a fallback at all. I truly believe that you have to give 100%. You have to be willing to sacrifice everything. And I know that these musicians did. And I saw that connecting tissue between all of them because I would interview a lot of these musicians in the 70s when their first record was coming out. So it's like, hey, well, what were you doing before this? You go, well, man, I was in the band. I was practicing guitar. It wasn't like, oh, I was, studying to be a school teacher or a bank clerk. Again, they may have had a part-time job to pay bills. But I saw that. Later on, you see people like Paul Stanley and high-profile guys, Ronnie Wood. They got into painting, or maybe they started a line of coffee, or they had an imprint on wine, or they were, they were writing books or something. But that was after the fact. That was after they had been successful. Hey, I've got this money, this name. I'm going to, I want to be a painter. I want to be a writer. I want to, own a winery. But that only came after the fact. And it takes a certain kind of person to be able to give those sacrifices. I would have given anything to have been in a band writing songs. But the journalism was always there. I saw the journalism as a springboard, but I was not willing. I wasn't able to give the journalism up to pursue music 100%. I was terrified of it. I thought, I can't do that. I'm not going to starve. I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. I'm not going to have. I can't deal with that. So for me, I wasn't able to do it. These other guys were.
I've got an idea for you as a new career. Counselor to aging rock stars, man. I mean, it's a big need, right?
I think there is.
I'm not Jewish.
And
Oh, that's perfect.
I always thought I could have been a really good counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist. I was as screwed up as anybody, but I could deal with that. But I really believed I could see these. I could see this stuff, and I think I could talk to these people in such a way that they would understand that. In a way, journalism becomes sort of an outlet for that. I mean, I can sort of express who I am and my opinions and my feelings, and excuse me, maybe people connect with that. And I think it really happened with Tone Chaser, but I think it happened earlier in my writing. But I love the idea, and I think that's what my relationship was with all these guitar players that I interviewed, bass players, drummers.